we're going to be talking obviously all about Google local services ads. Is anybody here running those? Okay, good amount. Okay. All right. Yeah, so basically what I'll be doing is just covering a lot of stuff. So I'm going to be going through everything related to local services ads. We're going to talk about how you can get better overall exposure from them, how you can utilize them properly to get the most possible leads. I'm going to go through a lot of little details that will basically help boost your rankings or boost the amount of times that you show up in your market. And is anybody not heard of local services ads? Does everyone here at least know of them? Okay. All right, perfect. So I'm going to show basically how it works, how to get set up, how to optimize it, and then what it takes to get in those top 2 results the most consistently in your market, and basically just, I guess, get the max reach that you can in your market and how you can compete at the top level, and then how you can get that lower cost per lead, how you can get these high quality leads from Google local services ads, what it takes, and a whole bunch else. So if we've never met or you weren't on the previous one that I did about an hour or 2 hours ago, my name is Alex Danner. I'm the owner and founder of Fencetech Marketers, and I've been in the industry over 10 years. And basically since the very beginning of the agency, made it a big priority to create a lot of content, and everything that we do, including today, not holding anything back. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do if it were my company. And this is just some different, obviously we're going to be talking about local services ads today, but if you're ever curious, we do a lot of webinars, a lot of collaborations with top manufacturers, and post those on the website if you're ever curious. Wrote the best known fence and deck contractor, and then a lot of social media and podcast, Fence and Deck Mastery podcast, bring on tons of guests there, vendors, manufacturers, a lot of different. So if you're ever driving to the job and want to give that a listen, feel free, and do a lot of different events like this, different speaking opportunities. Okay, so it sounds like everyone at least knows what they are. But basically with Google local services ads, well, I'm just curious. So how long has everybody been running these? Can I get a couple, have you been running for years? I mean, did you just start with them? Whoever was raising their hand, you guys been doing it for a while? Anybody that's currently running them? 2 years? Okay. 1 year? Okay. 6 months? Okay. Never ran them? Okay, perfect. I'll go into detail on all of it. So basically Google local services ads, they're the second type of ad that Google created. So they had the Google pay-per-click ads, and then they created Google local services ads, which for the fencing industry, they work really well. They do have basically a pay-per-lead system. So with local services ads, you can tell Google, say, hey, I'm a fence contractor, but I don't do repairs, I don't do maintenance, I only want installs, and you can actually set it up to only target those specific types of jobs. So if you get somebody calling about a repair for maintenance, some of you might do repairs, but just as an example here, if somebody calls, looking for a service that you don't do related to fencing, or somebody calls for work, or could just be spam, you should be able to get your money back from Google. So you're not taking that risk like you do with pay-per-click ads. That's basically if somebody clicks, goes to your website, they charge you. So it's a much lower risk, higher reward with local services ads, and they work well, but there are a lot of little things that you have to know, and that's what we're going to be covering today. All those little things that'll help move the needle, help get you more exposure. So just a couple examples of why you should use Google local services ads. So if somebody's looking for a fence contractor, basically a service provider, 87% of the time they're going to be going to Google to find that. And really just Google is the #1 place that people are going to be looking for the services that you need. It's going to be the best quality leads. If somebody's like, hey, I need a new fence, they're going to be going to Google most of the time to go and find a contractor. And with local services ads, they actually show up at the very top. So if you go to Google, you'll see the breakdown, you'll see Google local services ads, you'll see the pay-per-click ads, you'll see the Google Maps, and then you'll also see the website results. So they show up at the very top, which is really powerful. And really just no higher intent than you're going to see with the leads that come to Google versus other sources. But you got to have a plan. You got to make sure you're doing it correctly, and it's not as much of a set and forget it as some people think. So I'm going to show you how to do an ongoing process to make sure you're managing the leads and checking all the boxes to get the best results. Okay, so sounds like not many of you, but just for ones that haven't currently set them up, if you want to get started with these, you do have to go to Google and basically fill out the application. They do a background check, and they'll do a license if license is required in your state, insurance, and basically just do a background check on the owner. When you get signed up, it kind of seems like you have to do it with every employee, but you don't. You just have to run it with the owner. They do it through a company called Evident. So once you fill out your application, get all that started, do the background check, that's when you're going to get verified. And then it should be, I've never seen an area that is not active in. So all the areas that I've currently seen, that it is active in all states. And the cost per lead has gone up. It kind of fluctuates. It's probably on the higher end of this nowadays, but I'd say probably 50 to 80 is what we're seeing currently across all of our clients. And it's of course going to vary depending on the city and the services that you're using them for. Okay, so the great thing about fencing and local services ads is they have a separate category. So not all industries have a separate category where you can actually have subcategories within it. So with fencing, you can say I'm a fence contractor, and then you can check off the different categories within that. So fence installation, repairs, maintenance, I got it on here somewhere, custom construction, other. So does anybody do repairs in your maintenance? Okay. Yeah, so they have those checked there as well. If you're not doing it, you have the option to uncheck those so that way you don't get charged for those bad leads. And yeah, we already talked about the background check, your insurance, making sure you have that, and then the business license if that's required. So the biggest thing that I want to dial in and really make clear is going to be, one of the top most important factors is going to be the budget. So you have to set a weekly budget with Google Local Services ads, and you can set it to virtually anything you want, but you want to make sure you don't fall into the trap of setting a very, very low budget. So something that we see pretty often is that contractors will, put in maybe only spend a few $100s a week. They only want to spend $500 a month or $1,000 a month. The problem with local services ads is Google is going to compare you to your competitors to see what that budget is. And if you have a higher budget, you're going to have a good chance to be ahead in ranking more than you would if you had a much lower budget. So when you run Google Local Services ads, a lot of the times we will set a high budget. So rather than setting it to $500 a week or even less than that, we usually start off $1,500, maybe $2,000 a week. But just because you set that budget doesn't mean you're going to spend it. So that's kind of the reason why people don't like to use a bigger budget, is because they think they're just going to spend $8,000 a month and they're not willing to do that. What we'd like to do is, if you're getting started out, have a bigger budget to get those leads and basically look good in comparison to your competitors. And if you need to scale it back, that's fine. But you need to build that trust with Google. You need to be picking up the call and looking good in their eyes with that account before you start scaling it back. So if you are just getting started, you've done it for a while, and it's starting to, maybe the results are just kind of going down, or you don't getting as many leads as you would like, definitely check that budget, increase it, and that should help. It's not the only factor. We're going to talk about a bunch more too. But in terms of like the lead flow, it's going to always depend on on a million variables. It's not going to be an exact number of leads every single day. It's going to depend on weather, time of year, whatever. And depending on that budget, they're going to show competitors and things as well, so they can get their leads too. But Google has changed up their process. The process for managing the leads used to be a little bit different. Now they have used AI, like everybody, to start managing that process. And I'm going to go through kind of how you can get the best from that process and manage the leads properly. I think every single one of our clients, because you can get your money back if it's a bad lead, there's not a whole lot of risk. So most of the time we'll let it go, but you do have that option to kind of scale back if you needed to. For a closed deal, like, so not just the lead, you're saying, I mean, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, if you said like a 30% close rate, then I definitely don't have those numbers, but if I had to guess, I don't know, at least 150, 200, I don't, for like a closed job. But yeah, somewhere around there, I would say. If you said it was $50 a lead, 30%, yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, so the beauty of them, we'll say this is not always perfect. It is Google, so it's not always perfect, but you should be able to get most of your money back if it is a bad lead. So that's why I really like these, because if it is a spam lead, if it's somebody that's in the wrong service area, so say you specified these counties, these cities, and it was outside of that service area, you should be able to get your money back. If it was a different service or somebody looking for work or just a repeat duplicate type contact or just wrong number, anything like that, Google actually will listen to the calls. So they have a separate phone number they use to track every call. They use AI to kind of listen to them and refund your money if it's not a legitimate lead. But that's not always perfect. So there is a next step where you can kind of try to get your money back on your own too, outside of Google. Everything depends on what your goals are. Me personally, I think these are a no-brainer for just about anybody, just because of the low risk, high reward that you can have. I will say this, you do need to have a solid Google listing. You can't just run these if you don't have a Google listing, so you do need to have one. And the more reviews you have, the better. So if you have a Google listing and you have a 3-star average, or you have 10 reviews and all your competitors have a lot more, you're gonna struggle. You're not gonna get as good results from it. But if you do, you have a legitimate number of reviews, I would say at least 4.7 or more as an average. There really are a no-brainer as long as you need the leads. Obviously, if you don't need them, it's one thing. But if you want more, these are hands down my first thing to do outside of SEO. But the main reason is it shows up at the top. So that prime real estate all the way at the top of Google is huge. Just sitting up the top of there is a really big deal. You're only paying per lead. Is anybody doing pay-per-click ads too? Not many? Okay. It's definitely cheaper than pay-per-click ads. It's just a better system, in my opinion, and what we've seen. You have a little bit less control with these, but it's easier to use, easier to maintain, and just higher quality leads than Home Advisor and some of those lead generation services. So you're not going to have to worry about the same lead that comes to you being sent to 5 other contractors or whatever Angie's and all of them do. So as long as you have that strong positioning, you have good reviews, you can get that review and still kind of separate yourself. And then you can always modify your budget as you need it. So if you had to increase it or decrease it, depending on what you need, you always have that option too. Okay, so I think it was only one or maybe a couple guys that haven't done these, so I'll go through this. Just if you do need to get set up with these, or if you have multiple locations and you want to set it up for multiple areas, you can kind of follow the steps. So first things first, got to go to Google, type in, you can go to that link there, or just go to ads.google.com/local services ads. Easiest way is just Google it. It's going to be a lot quicker. Once you get there, you have to enter all your information, put your state in there, zip code, and then fill in that information there. Once you have all that set up, that's when it's going to basically trigger the background check, and you'll have to enter some of your documents. So you'll have to give them all that information. Once that's done, there's a waiting period for them to actually verify it and get set up. But past that, then you got to basically bring in your images, optimize the profile, and get it ready to start running ads. So it's much easier than most ad platforms. It doesn't take a whole lot of work to get them set up, and in most cases, you should be able to get set up pretty easily. I want to talk about the ranking factors. So if you wish they were performing better than they currently are, I'll show you some different ways to do it. But just curious, who feels pretty confident with how fast you answer the calls, or how, answering all the calls? Does anybody feel like they always pick up every call? No? Okay. Does anybody feel like they miss a ton of calls? No, just nobody. Well, a big issue with the local services ads is answering the calls. So if you're not picking up the phone consistently, your account will be in jeopardy, basically, because Google will realize that you're not answering the phone, and the less you do that, the worse your rankings are going to be, the less leads you're going to get. So I always say, I would highly recommend, if you're ever going to run these, make sure you have somebody that's really good about answering the phones. So you have somebody in-house that has no issues with picking up every call, they answer them all, and there's no worries there. If that is a worry, I would recommend getting some kind of answering service to help do that, because if not, can certainly run into a lot of issues. And Google will, since they do record all the calls, they monitor all this data, they'll be able to tell if you're not answering each call. But the proximity is a big deal too. So just like, is anybody doing SEO? Is everyone doing SEO in here? Most people? No? Okay. So just like with SEO, how close your Google listing is to the searcher is a big deal, and how often you will rank. Same thing with local services ads. The closer you are to the searcher, the better your results are going to be. You do have more flexibility than you do with your Google listing, but you want to make sure that you're going to see that you have better results if you're more centrally located to where those customers are. So if you're kind of on the outskirts, very far away from your customers, and results aren't that great, that could be a reason as well. The reviews, so direct correlation with somebody that has a ton of reviews and the amount of leads that they get with local services ads. So if you're sitting there with a really low count, adding some more reviews and just ideally being that dominant player in the area is going to lead to a lot more. We talked about the responsiveness, the business hours. So this is another reason why the answering service is such a big deal, because if you can have a answering service that answers 24/7, then you're basically going to have that advantage to open up your hours on the local services ads to get leads at any time, including weekends. So the clients that do the best with these have some kind of answering service, and we can actually run them 24/7. So you can have them open at any time of the day, evenings, weekends, and that's a big advantage and will lead to more leads there, especially if you have competition that's not open at those times. So definitely think about that. That's a quick way to get more leads by opening up those hours. And then if people are complaining about the business, that's of course gonna harm it. And yeah, they will spread out the leads over time. Most people are gonna get their cut. They're not gonna let somebody just get none for the most part. So it's gonna kind of be spread out over time, and that budget will be spread out. I want to talk about some other ways you can win with these, and how you can just improve your overall experience with local services ads. We talked about this, the answering all the calls, and I wanted to tell you a story too. So we had a client that ran these local services ads, and I told him the importance of picking up the calls, making sure they did it. I didn't really want to offer them unless I was clear on that, and that's how we maintain it now. But she told me, she was like, I'm good, I'm at my desk, that's all fine. So the leads don't just come on, just start piling in as soon as you turn it on. It's gonna take a little bit. And in her case, that's what happened. So she went to the bathroom, and basically the first lead came in, she missed it. And ever since the beginning of that, it was just an uphill climb from there. So when you first start out with that local services ads account, make sure you are picking up those calls, because it will have a big impact to start it out. With a voice AI, yeah, I mean, I think, how good is is that what you use? Yeah, it's a good question. It's something we're working on right now. I'm not really sure, because most of what I've seen have not been really good. I think Google would pick up on that, but as it's evolving, I think that is going to be a valid way to do it if you have someone that actually sounds like a real person. But for now, it's yeah, that's a good question. We don't have any clients that use it, so I don't have direct results on that. Kind of for now, I just tell everyone to stay away from voice AI unless you have a really, really good option. But other than that, it's usually hit or miss. Yeah, you can set up a different phone number. So you You have to contact Google to use like tracking numbers. Is that what you're talking about, or is it an actual phone number? Yeah. So there's a couple ways you could do that. Tracking numbers are a great way. So if you have that's what we use for all the marketing that we do. We have a separate number that's for tracking. So you would have a number for local services ads, and then you point that number to another number. So in that case, I mean, it'd be kind of a lot of work because you'd have to kind of switch it midweek, but you could do that. You could just change the tracking number to point to your main number, and then the off days go to your answering service. It's kind of a pain, but that would work. There wouldn't be a problem with that because Google would still just be seeing that tracking number. So in their eyes, it would be the same one over and over again. Okay, so this is just the budget, but to give you guys a screenshot, I would definitely make sure crank that weekly budget up if you're having problems. It can be something that will impact and improve your campaign pretty quick. It's not always going to be the immediate fix, and that's usually when it's not that helpful is because Google has some kind of problem with the account. So that's why I cannot stress enough to make sure you're answering the calls. There's some other stuff I'll talk about here, but you just don't want to get out of favor with Google, basically. You want to keep building that reputation and look good in their eyes, so that way they don't kind of drop you down and rank others ahead of you. So we talked about the budget and making sure you increase that. The ad schedule. That's the other, we talked about that. If you can open it up and be 24/7, that's going to be the best possible option because Google likes that too. Just like they like the bigger budget, the more open you are tends to lead to better results too. The job types, make sure you're specifying those. When you specify for fencing, usually what I'll do, because there's a category for fence installation, fence repair, I think it's custom construction, and there's an other. So definitely don't like selecting other because that just leaves too much room for Google. But the custom construction a lot of times will run with the fence install leads. And then the service areas. That's probably one thing I see a lot too is the service areas. So go and check out where you're running them. If you're setting it for just a couple cities, a couple zip codes, that's going to be a clear reason why you're not doing that well. You want to open that up and have at least a sizable area, and that's going to help in case somebody searches for you or searches for a fence company and they're not at their current home. So some people will search when they're around town or at work or whatever, so you don't want to just be limited to when they're only at their house because that's just asking for a limited reach. You mean with how many, all your states? Yeah, so if you're doing it that big, you definitely want to have multiple. Yeah, because you could, if you ran Virginia, was it North Carolina? Yeah, I don't even know if that would show, to be honest. I've never tested that one, but it wouldn't be worth it. You wouldn't want to separate it out and set them all up there. And even if you're not even that far away, so say you have multiple within a state, maybe you're 40 minutes away or something like that, multiple Google listings, it is a good idea to run local services ads in both of those areas at one time, even though they're kind of close, because if you remember on one of those slides, the proximity is a factor, so you want to have both of those run at the same time. It's going to get better results. All right. Oh, photos. So when you create your account, make sure you add good photos. So you don't want to create an account and then there's no custom images. You don't want to put up a lot of stock images, things like that. So make sure you throw up a bunch of different projects. If you're doing different fence types, make sure you have different images for each one of those so they can kind of decide what they're looking for. So, metal, chain link, vinyl, wood, put all of those different materials on upload those images as well. Okay, so this is a really, really big deal and something that's going to have a big impact in terms of how many leads you get long term. So is anybody that's running local services ads, anybody managing the leads, going in there and marking them as booked, archived? Okay. Anybody not doing it and just kind of setting and forgetting it? Okay. Well, that's good. I didn't see any hands for that. But you need to make sure that you're doing that. So once a lead comes in, you should be going in there and actually checking out the leads and entering information for each one. So, you mark them as booked or archived. If it's a bad lead, you can mark it as archived. If it was a good lead, you can mark it as booked, and you'll have to enter information about that specific lead. And that's what Google wants to see. They don't want to see it just kind of setting and forgetting it. They want to see that you're consistently doing, managing these leads, entering the information for each one of them, and monitoring that whole process.
Where on that page will we mark that?
It's on the, I should have a screenshot for it here on the next one. So when you click on these leads, that's when the screen will come up. I'm pretty sure I got a screenshot. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I got one coming up here. So yeah, marking them as booked, add the customer details, the email address, and then if it was not a lead that you're able to book, you can then archive them, and I'll show you that screenshot here. So yeah, just like when you click on that lead, this is the screen that will come up, and basically enter the customer name, the email, add some notes. So like what we will do is just basic notes on where it was from, what it was, if it was a install lead in this city, something like that, you can mention it. If it was a bad lead, you can just add a little note there so you can kind of keep track. Entering all that information each time is definitely important. And then also the beauty of it too, you can actually hear the recording. So they will record every single lead. So if you click in that bottom right-hand corner, click show recording, that'll allow you to listen to the recording, have it, be able to tell if it was a bad lead. And if they didn't give you your money back, then you can rate the lead to try and get your money back after that. Excuse me?
The customer email field, is that required?
No, so these are, you don't have to do any of these. You don't have to fill this out. But yeah, they want you to. So Google just wants you to kind of use their tool. So filling that out is a good idea.
Does the customer do anything to fill that out?
Excuse me?
Does the customer get any correspondence that you did anything online to fill that out? Like, does it send anything to them or anything?
Yeah, or not right here, but you can request a review, which will come up. I'll show you that here in a second. So that's the piece there that they'll be able to get. Okay, so if you looked here, that top right-hand corner, it says rate this lead. So Google used to have a better option for this, and you could basically just click to dispute the leads, but Google, being Google, they make it harder now. So now you can basically say what your overall opinion of the lead was to try and get your money back. It's not as good as it used to be. It used to be a lot easier, but you can at least try to let them know if it was a bad lead, and if it was you were charged for it when you don't believe you should have. So you can rate the leads, rate each one like that. Okay, so like I said, Google will be Google, and this is not always perfect, but you shouldn't, for the majority of the time, get charged for any of those leads that were outside of your service area. If it was a service that you don't provide, if it was somebody that was calling, spam or looking for work, and basically if you still got called and still got charged, then you can always rate the lead at the end. Okay, so is anybody trying to get verified reviews? So Google reviews through local services ads. Has anybody heard of that, doing it at all? Okay, you're not alone. Most people don't. Google has a process for getting what they call verified reviews, basically. So just like you get a Google review, just a standard review, you can actually get a verified review based off the job you complete. So if you complete a job, and to answer your question with if you mark it as a booked job and you basically show when the job was actually going on, when that ends, Google can send out a review link to that customer to leave a review. And if they do, it comes back as an actual verified review. So under that review, it'll say verified review, kind of like Amazon with like a verified purchase. If somebody, they can track that it was actually used and not just a fake review, they'll use it for that. And I will say it's extremely frustrating with those types of reviews, even more frustrating than getting normal reviews, but they do have a big impact. If you can make it work, if you can get those, especially if you have competition that's doing it already, you should definitely try to. No, so they're separate. Yeah. So the verified reviews will only come through on the LSA account. So it won't. Assuming you have regular reviews, a good flow of those, then definitely the verified reviews. I mean, they're kind of both important, I would say. But if you're getting a lot of reviews on your Google listing, those will reflect on your LSA, your local services ads listing. And if you're just killing it on reviews, you're going to get a lot of leads. So this is better to do, but we see a lot of clients that just kill it with LSAs, and they're not doing that either. But in terms of best practices, that's the way to do it. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. When they do the verified reviews? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you're, it would be if you added verified reviews. No, it's always. I mean, I've never seen it where you just start with verified reviews. Usually, you have like a big core bunch of reviews, and then you add the verified onto it. And I mean, it is worth doing. It does move the needle quite a bit. So if you have competition, that's usually where you got to look for it. If they're already doing that and you're not, then it's kind of something you have to do. More leads, yeah, yeah, yeah. Showing up more often, that kind of thing. Yeah. All right. Okay. So talked about this, the reviews, getting that service, of course. So, not trying to just game the system, actually give that good 5-star service is what's gonna, lead to actually more likely that you're gonna get those reviews. And then, just make sure you enter the name, the email. That way it sends to the right person once it's over with, once the job's done, and then you can request the review. So that's what it looks like. It'll say Google verified job. So when they click, go to Google, type in fence company near me, they click on those reviews. That's when you're going to see those reviews that have that Google verified job at the top, and those will be the priority, basically. Mm. They'll show as they won't show as like a Google verified lead, only in the LSAs. Like they'll show as they won't show as like you don't have that label for Google verified under your normal one. You mean like your normal Google listing? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it has to exactly. So it has to be in that like drop down of leads. Click on it and then go out from there. Yeah. All right. So we touched on these. Just kind of a recap here. So if you want to get an increased flow, this is just kind of a summary of what we've been talking about. But make sure, open up that budget, go check out what your weekly budget is and see about increasing that. Make sure you set some kind of reminder to monitor it if you're really concerned about spending too much. The service areas, if you're in a big city, or I guess if you're in a small city, you're going to see noticeably lesser results versus if you're in a big area. So fence client of ours in Denver that has good reviews is going to have a whole lot more than if you're in a really smaller area. So if you're not getting a whole lot of leads, check out the spots that you're trying to rank in, check the population, check the search volume to see if there is enough demand, because that could also be your point or your problem. It might not just be that your account's not set up properly. It could be there's just not enough demand in that area. So a lot of ways, but I mean, if you have, you need some kind of tool to see the search volume in those areas. Are you running Google pay-per-click ads?
I really have next to no. I'm in a pretty rural area.
Okay.
Minimal presence. Most folks, I still have landline people that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just where I'm at.
Have you ever run like Google pay-per-click, not these types of ads, but never? Okay. So there's SEO tools that'll show you the volume for your area. So pay-per-click is one way to do that. And if you don't have it, basically just find SEO software that'll show you the total volume in your area. So you can say, maybe are you working in a couple counties, something like that? Yeah. So you can actually use these tools to specify, all right, I'm in these counties, and then you can put in the keywords, fence company near me, metal, wood, vinyl, all of those keywords, and see what that volume is. And then you can also compare it to maybe a bigger city nearby, somewhere that's a little bit out of your range that is just, I mean, you could even compare it to like a major city like, Dallas or, something like that. But if it's very small, maybe 10 searches a month or 20, 30 for a fence company near me, that could be an issue too, that there's just not enough people searching it. And that could be the problem too. And this is kind of going a little bit off topic, but if you're in an area that's rural, you might want to consider getting that Google listing located within your major area, where there is more volume if possible. Because if you're on the outskirts and there's, just a couple thousand or something people, and then you have a main city that has, I don't know, 30, 100, hundreds of thousands, if you relocate into that area, you're going to get a lot better results and more people reaching out too, just because you'll just be where the demand is. So, did I answer your question? Anything else? You sure?
I'm about 2 hours outside, so.
Of the majors? Oh, 2 hours? Okay. What is it? What area?
I'm in
South
South Kentucky.
Kentucky. So you're south of, was it like?
I'm 2 hours or 3 from Nashville, 2 from Knoxville, Lexington. I'm in a center radius of nothing.
Okay. Yeah. What's the population, do you know?
The entire, I don't know, we're probably town-wise, I'm probably sitting at 60,000 per county, per county.
Okay.
So it's not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's,
I see more word of mouth than I do internet.
yeah. I've seen that happen multiple times where that's just kind of the unfortunate truth of it is like, if the volume's real low, the demand, like you said, if people are still using home phones and they're just not great with technology, then there are areas like that yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to go to like a major city, but if you go to another spot that has maybe 20, 30,000 in one city versus, a couple thousand, I've seen that make a big impact too. And just trying to find the areas that can afford it too. I don't know if it's like, I've seen that be a problem where you're just located in an area that just can't afford to pay for quality or whatever. They're just kind of tire kickers. So you might want to look at that too. You can talk too more if you want me to kind of point you in the direction after this, because it gets a little tricky, kind of how to find the right area. Oh yeah.
Is that for the Google business page or just for the local services ad? Like when you want to.
They go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. Yeah, so when you set up,
So how you can't really move over your whole business profile to a city where you're just not set up.
so there's a couple of things you can do. It's gotten way harder now, but you can get cheaper office space in those areas. So if you we've done this a lot, you pay for, on average, probably like $500 a month for like a small office within that location and move your Google listing there. If you're in that nice area with the high volume, good customers, you can move all of those to that area. And I've seen humongous jumps just from relocating. And I would say all the audits I do, we do them constantly. That's usually a problem. It's usually the location is a big issue. And when you take care of that, it can be really substantial in terms of difference there. All right. Okay, so, all right. If don't have these set up, these are kind of the steps you can go to get it done. If you have multiple locations or you're trying to expand into new areas, getting that Google listing, kind of the process we were just talking about, you can move your area or you can open up a new location somewhere else and then use local services ads for that. And I would always recommend using tracking numbers, some kind of tracking system so you can basically see how many leads are coming in. You can monitor them and see what the ROI is and track them back to your CRM to see if the jobs are closed. And make sure you're monitoring all the different leads, marking them as archived, closed, booked, and kind of just playing the game. It's only going to go up from here. It's already gone up quite a bit. It used to be really cheap to run these. Now it just seems to go up, and that's always kind of the MO with Google. So I would just recommend kind of riding it, until it doesn't make sense. Okay, so what we've covered here, we talked about local services ads, where it's active, how it works, best practices, and how to get ranked in the top 2, not 3, and how you can take advantage of it, get those more leads, more activity from your account, and get better results overall.